Okay, so here we are at our last stop for this lab focused on early stand development and associated silvicultural treatments. So we've talked about site prep, we've talked about release. Now we're going to talk a little bit about pruning and pre-commercial thinning. And we're going to look at this Norway spruce plantation in the background behind me. So this one here, it's about 50 years old. And this planting's interesting because within it, it's established at varying densities. So we're gonna go look in there and we'll see that there's variation in the spacing between trees and different varying densities throughout the stand. And what I want to point out here while we have a good look at the canopy profile is that there's a uniformity in height. And kind of going back to our discussion of site quality and site index and why we use height to characterize site quality, it's because height growth is independent of density. And you can see that here in this plantation that's established at varying densities, but it has a fairly uniform canopy height. And there is some stratification in the canopy, height structured competition and suppression happening, and we'll take a look at that. And that does result in some variability, but overall average height is independent of stand density. So let's go take a look inside. I might need my glasses, my safety glasses for this. Okay, so we can see that this plantation is dense. This is a dense stand in general that's in the stem exclusion phase of development or entering it. Okay, so if we look here, right where we're standing, we see some fairly large diameter trees. The largest ones being about 8 inches in diameter. And we've got about 6-foot spacing here. So these trees are just entering sort of a merchantable size class. This one is on average smaller. This one's pretty big. Hold up my index card. So yeah, that's about 8 inches, 8 to 9 inches in diameter. We've got about 6-foot spacing. If we look up, we see some differentiation in the crown classes. This small diameter tree is getting overtopped by the adjacent larger trees. And then as we move through the stand, we're coming into increasing densities, stand densities, resulting in smaller diameters. And it goes all the way to 2-foot spacing here. So you can see that we've had lots of stem exclusion in here where we've had 2-foot spacing. We see a lot of small diameter dead trees. Average diameter is much smaller, maybe more like 5 inches. There's the overstory. So same age, different diameters as a result of different initial spacings and densities. And so one thing that we often do is we set our initial spacing and density to set us on it. We use our stocking charts or our density management diagrams to determine that density that would lead to full site, full stocking and the onset of density dependent mortality once the trees are of merchantable size. So we're setting ourselves up for that initial commercial thin. If we have stands regenerating at higher densities, if we plant them that way, for example, to encourage self-pruning, so you can see the evidence of self-pruning. We have lots of dead branches that are, you know, hazardous and may poke us in the eyes in here. And so high density encourages that self-pruning. If we establish a lower initial density, for example, to set trees on a trajectory to grow faster and develop that commercial size faster, we don't get the benefit from self-pruning, which is smaller knot sizes and higher quality, sturdier wood. So you might consider going in there and doing some pruning. So that's another early stand development treatment is pruning to reduce those knot sizes and that might be particularly important in lower density plantations where you don't have self-pruning. So here looking again at that really high density, contrasting with a lower density that results in higher diameter, larger diameter trees in a faster amount of time, in a shorter amount of time. Pardon me. So this is about 5-foot spacing here. This looks more like getting into four-foot spacing. Got smaller diameter trees closer together. But again, if we go look at the profile of the canopy, tree height is independent here of stand density. And even in these densest areas with 2-foot spacing, the largest trees that are overtopping the smaller, slower growing trees are doing fine. They've got good live crown ratios. They're going to keep growing up and developing more live crown as they push their way up. Okay, so to summarize, size density relationships, we can establish lower density plantations to develop larger trees faster. In stands that establish at higher densities, either naturally or artificially, we can go in and do a pre-commercial thinning. So we can reduce density and increase spacing in order to encourage those trees, crop trees, to grow faster. So that's a pre-commercial thinning, meaning those trees are cut and just left on the ground, you know, sometimes using just a brush saw or a hand saw, chainsaw, and there's no revenue, so it's an investment. In stands that have a lower density of younger saplings and seedlings, either via artificial regeneration or natural regeneration, if we're really trying to develop high quality saw timber, we might go in there and prune those trees, because we're not going to have the benefit of faster diameter growth. We might lose the benefit of self-pruning, so we could end up with thicker branches and larger knots in the wood, and in that case we might consider going in there and doing some pruning. All right, thanks. I hope you enjoyed this field trip focusing on early stand development and associated silvicultural treatments. See you guys. I guess I'll see you tomorrow in class. Bye.